Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome back to another edition of Mordheim-Mondays, where we showcase Mordheim Battle Reports every Monday during our Fantasy Wargaming Weeks on this channel. And this is with our series, The Empire in Flames. This is Mordheim Battle Report number 28. It is a Thing in the Woods scenario, and this will also be the very last scenario that we'll be playing for our Empire in Flames campaign for Mordheim. So this one's actually going to be a four-way battle. This one's fought between my friends Sergeant Sigmar, Dark Lord Mac, Lady Domina, as well as myself. Sergeant Sigmar is bringing the Lords of Azure Skies, his Sisters of Sigmar warband. Lady Domina is bringing the Untamed Beasts, her Beastman Raiders warband. Dark Lord Mac is bringing Spiteclaw Swarm of the Skaven, and I'm bringing my Carnival of Chaos warband, Something Wicked This Way Comes. So all four of these warbands will be fighting in the depths of the forests of the Empire, trying to fight each other at the same time, trying to hunt down the things that live in the woods. So we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you photos of all four warbands as well as the rosters. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause, take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenario rules for this one is called The Thing in the Woods. The objective is to be the very last warband standing. What ends up happening is that all four warbands will be fighting amongst each other. At the same time, we also have four monstrous creatures called the Things in the Woods that randomly spawn within the forests of this battlefield, and we have to fight those creatures as well. For experience on this one, every single fighter earns 1 point of experience for surviving this scenario, as well as the winning warband leader also earns a bonus experience point. Heroes earn 1 point of experience for each enemy they take out of action, and at the same time, if a hero takes out a thing in the woods, they also earn an additional experience point on top of that. So they can actually earn 2 experience points if they manage to kill one of those creatures. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x4 table, and like I said before, this is a Thing in the Woods scenario, so pretty much the entire tabletop is covered with forests on this one. So it's actually kind of crazy. You can actually see the chaos spawn that we have located in the table. They're primarily located in the upper right hand corner of the tables where most of them are located at. The reason why is because when we rolled off to see where they would end up going, that's where they just kind of end up going for the most part, right next to the Sisters of Sigmar on the right hand side. As you can see, I'm deployed on the far left hand side as well. My friend Dark Lord Max deployed on the bottom, Sergeant Sigmar's on the right, and the top is Lady Domina. Pretty much my plan is to kind of like fight somewhat defensively. I'm going to keep half my warband up at the top left occupied by shooting at the Untamed Beasts. The reason why is because they have crossbows primarily for the most part, and that half of my warband. Meanwhile, my demons of my warband, my 5 Nurglings and my 2 Plague Bearers, along with a Carnival Master, they're going to try to take on, hold back the Skaven, which are down below me, down below. And the reason was because the Skaven are kind of deadly on that one. The Sisters of Sigmar I'm not too worried about too much because they have to cross the entire battlefield to come get me. Plus I got to deal with those 4 things in the woods are located in the upper hand corner. And as for the Untamed Beasts, they do have some range attacks, but not many. They're primarily close combat oriented, but I have crossbows. So hopefully I can whittle them down before they close rank with me. And that's pretty much my battle plan on this one. So with the battle plan over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, first of all, we're going to start with Spiteclaw Swarm. This is my friend Dark Lord Max deployment. On the left hand side there, he's got a little fire team located there, dividing his warband in half. In the back, that is Stretch Spiteclaw. He's an assassin adept. He's also the leader of this warband. He's got a halberd, throwing stars, light armor, helmet, shield. He's also got the leader as well as the perfect killer skills. Right in front of him as well are two Night Runners. We have Squee the Lurker and Snarl the Rabbit. Squee the Lurker has a brace of Warp Lock pistols. He's got a shield. He's also got the Pistolier and Weapon Expert skills. And Snarl the Rabbit also has a brace of Warp Lock pistols. He's got a shield, Pistolier, as well as Weapons Expert skill as well. And then right in the front of the three there, we have a little three-man group of henchmen called the Rats on the Walls. They're three verminkin named Gnar, Tunneler, and Skitterer. And those three guys are armed with spears, slings, as well as shields. And the right-hand side of the deployment is the rest of Spiteclaw Swarm. In the center, that is Crick the Almost Trusted. He's an Eshin Sorcerer. He's armed with Halberd, Sling. He's also got the spell Children of the Horned Rat. And up in the front there, you can see one of the giant rats that got spawned there. Up in the front, those two Skaven armed with flails, those guys are called the Crawling Chaos. They're a henchman group named Rar and Gur. Those guys are armed with flail, slings, as well as shields. Right behind them, the back right-hand side, that is the Cat Killer. He's a black Skaven who's armed with Fighting Claws, Sling. He's also got light armor and shield. He's also got the tail fighting skill. All right, next on the left-hand side, that is Squeak the Festering, another black Skaven who's armed with Weeping Blades. He's also got a sling. He's got light armor and shield, and he has the tail fighting skill as well. And on the right-hand side of the deployment area, we have the Lords of Azure Skies. This is Stars of Sigmar and Sisters of Sigmar Warband. Up in the back, we have the top right in the back. That is the Lord Relictor, who is a Sigmar matriarch. She's armed with heavy armor, shield, helmet, sling. She's got a Sigmarite Warhammer. She's also got the Leader and Healing Hands ability, and she's also got one blinding injury as well. Next to her with the giant trumpet, that is the Heraldor. That is the Warband's Augur. She's armed with a steel whip. She's got a buckler helmet as well as a sling, and she's got the Blessed Sleight ability. Right in front of her is the Retributor, who's a Brother Superior armed with heavy armor. He's got a helmet as well as a great weapon and sling. He's also got the Hardened Injury special rule as well. And taking point there, we have a Vanguard Hunter. He's a novice armed with hammer, sling, as well as a buckler. And right behind him is the Prosecutor. He's a Brother Superior armed with heavy armor, shield, helmet. He's also got a sling, a Sigmarite Warhammer, as well as the Mighty Blow ability. And down below, we got two Sisters of Sigmar. Those two characters are named the Sisters of Sledge. They're both armed with hammers, slings, and bucklers, and leading that group is the Liberator, another Brother Superior armed with heavy armor, shield, helmet, sling, as well as a Sigmarite Warhammer. Meanwhile, on the top of the battlefield, we have the Untamed Beasts, Lady Domina's Beastman Raiders warband. On the left-hand side, we have Cleft Skull, who's a Gore, who's armed with a halberd as well as a shield. Next on the right is Ugla the Maw, a Centaur, armed with the halberd shield. He's got the Drunken, Four-Strider, Stomp, as well as Shaggy Hide skills. In the center, we have two Ungors named Kairos and Shank. They're both armed with parrot axes, short bows, shields, and they have the Lowest of Low special rule. Right next on the right hand side, that is Gradan Blood Eye. He's a Bestigor armed with a great weapon shield and he's got the Shaggy Hide ability. Next to him is another Bestigor named Sean Headclaimer, who's got a great weapon shield, a strong man, as well as Shaggy Hide ability. And finally on the right hand side, we have Cleft Jaw, another Gor's armed with halberd as well as a shield. In the back left, that is Thedra Skull Squire. She is a shaman who's got a halberd. She's also got the Lure of Chaos and the Eye of the God spells. And right next on the right hand side is Varel Hearteater. He is the chieftain for his warband. He is equipped with battle axe as well as a shield. He's got the leader as well as the Billowing Roar ability. And that pretty much makes up the deployment here on the top part of the screen. Alright, so now it's time for deployment for Something Wicked This Way Comes, my Carnival of Chaos warband. So up in the front, we have three brethren. Those guys are called the Carnies. We have Thrax the Reeking, Erg the Pestilent, and Shirla the Riven. All three of those guys are armed with swords, crossbows, as well as shields. Right behind the back left, we have Plecipsimus the Plague Sworn. He is a tainted one with a halberd crossbow. He's got the Bloated Foulness ability as well as Sprint. He's also got the Hardened Injury as well. And next to him is Ebolith Blight. He's one of my brutes. He's got a great weapon, light armor, as well as a strong man and sprint skills as well. And then right beneath them, we have another brute named Morbid Blight. He's got great weapon, light armor, and strong man. And then finally, we have Golgok the Butcher. He's my last tainted one with a halberd crossbow. He's got Bloated Foulness, Step Aside, as well as sprint skills. And secondly, we got the second half of my warband. In the middle there, that is Papa Malinge. He's my Carnival Master, who's also the leader of my warband. He's got a brace of pistols. He's got heavy armor. He's got the leader, wizard, special rules. He's also got warrior wizard ability, as well as demonic vigor spell as well. And right next to him, he's flanked by either side by two plague bearers, boiling ruin, and festering jawbreaker. And he's also got 5 nurglings called the Clowns. And that makes up my deployment for this one. So after that, we're moving on to the deployment now for the things in the woods. There are 4 of them because there are 4 warbands taking place in this scenario. So we have the first one, thing number 1, is relatively in the center of the table, right behind the King in Yellow statue. To the right of the King in Yellow statue is another forest with thing number 2 located right there, and then right in front of the Sisters of Sigmar warband. On top of the Sisters of Sigmar, there's another forest with thing number 3, and he's kind of hiding it right there. You can see the little Sisters of Sigmar models right down below. And finally, in the top right-hand corner of that autumnal forest, another thing, we have thing number 4. He's located there in the top right-hand corner. Like I said, most of the things in the woods are primarily located in the center as well as upper right-hand corner of the battlefield. So now we're done with deployment, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends and I roll off for priority to see which of us will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and my buddy Dark Lord Matt managed to get the initiative on this one, so he will be going first for this battle report. And as you can see, this photo is taken at the movement phase. We skipped the recovery phase because it's the very beginning of the game, and he pretty much just moves directly to the left-hand side, heading directly towards my warband. The first thing he does, he actually just moves up the tunnelers as well, the rats in the walls, as well as his 2 night runners, as well as his leader, Spiteclaw. They just move up their normal movement lines to the left-hand side, so that way they're in range to open fire with their slings, and they'll be able to fire twice, which is absolutely devastating. Luckily for me, though, he'll be shooting my Nurglings, so it's no harm, no foul. Meanwhile, the second half of the warband, led by Crick Spiteclaw, those guys just Crick, the almost trusted, I apologize. They run around the forest in the center there, heading directly to the left-hand side to my warband as well. And pretty much they're kind of careful to make sure they're not within charge distance of both thing number 1 and thing number 2, as you can see on either side of that King in Yellow statue. And the reason why is because the things in the woods, they charge the nearest miniatures towards them. So right now, that's primarily the Sisters of Sigmar, and that's why he's kind of skirting the forest on the left-hand side. Now you might be wondering, why isn't he moving through the forest directly? And the reason why is because he has to take psychology tests if he does, because the woods are dark and creepy, and Skaven have miserable leadership scores. So staying out of the woods is pretty much in his best interest. So there's a close-up of Spiteclaw, as well as Squee the Lurker, Snarl the Rabbit, as well as the rats in the walls, moving up directly to start giving them shooting distance of their slings, so that way they can fire twice at me. And here's a close-up of the giant rat from the swarm, as well as Gur, Rar, Squeak the Festering, and the Cat Killer, with Crick the Almost Trusted running as quick as they can to the left-hand side in order to engage my forces. So the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, I actually got pretty lucky considering the number of shots that were coming my way, because the Skaven were within half distance of their slings, so they all could fire twice, which is absolutely devastating. Unfortunately for me, though, I do lose one of my Nurglings. He goes directly out of action, but no harm, no foul there. The other one gets a knockdown result, while the other one gets a stun result as well. So 3 Nurglings are currently down right now, which could have been much worse, if my opponent had rolled better. So luckily for me, I'll take whatever I can at this point. So with the shooting phase over, let's skip the combat phase. We go directly to the next warband. And that goes right to my turn. I get to go second on this one as well. And this photo is taken during the recovery phase. As you can see, one of my Nurglings get back on his feet again because he was simply knocked down, while the other one who was stunned is now rolled over, so that way he's got his knockdown result. So with the recovery phase over with, we go directly to the movement phase. And in the movement phase, I decided to take the offensive against Spiteclaw as well as his swarm of Skaven. I decided to charge in a couple of my Nurglings. They go directly into Spiteclaw swarm down there in the bottom left-hand side. I also move up my 2 Plague Bearers as well as pop up Malinge, so that way they're within range within shooting if they want to, because the Plague Bearers have their Stream of Corruption ability, and Pop up Malinge can also cast his Demonic Vigor, which I'm probably going to do instead of shooting, because that way I get a +1 bonus to all my ward saves for my demons. Meanwhile, on the top half of the screen, where the rest of my warbands look at, they just stand their ground. They don't really move all that much. And the reason why is because they all have crossbows, so it's either move or shoot. And I'm not moving, so that way I can shoot. And that pretty much makes it my move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the charges that went off here in the bottom of the screen. As you can see, 2 of my Nurglings go directly into 2 members of the Rats in the Walls, engaging those guys in close combat. I believe those guys' names are Gnar as well as Tunneler, I believe, while my other Nurgling just kind of moves up as well. At the same time, I also move up both Boiling Ruin and Festering Jawbreaker, as well as Pop Malinge, so that way they get in range to shoot their Stream of Corruption shooting attacks and be able to cast spells as well. Meanwhile, here's a close of the rest of my warband. As you can see, they're just standing their ground because they plan on opening fire with their crossbows directly into the Untamed Beasts. And speaking of which, we go directly to the shooting phase. So during the shooting phase, I decided to open up with some of my streamer corruption abilities going off from my plague bearers. So the first thing they do, they is to take puts a knockdown result, a stun result onto, I believe that's Squeak the Lurker, as I ended up doing it for that guy. So that part was kind of cool. At the same time, I managed to take out Nar, which is one of the verminkin from the Raz of the Wall, with the out of action result from the second shot of streamer corruption from the Boiling Runes. So that part was excellent. Meanwhile, Papa Malinga decides to cast Demonic Vigor. I managed to roll a 9 on my magic test, so that was absolutely fantastic. Which means now that all my Nurglings, as well as my Plague Bearers, have +1 to their ward saves, giving them ward save 4 in close combat, which is all kinds of good. Meanwhile, on the top of the screen, I was able to take out Cleft Skull, I believe is the name of the fighter. Basically opened up with my crossbows and those guys, so put that guy directly out of action, which is all kind of awesome. At the same time, though, the rest of my shots didn't really make it too well, so because of that, nothing much happened there. Now, for the combat phase, we do skip the combat phase on this one, and the reason why is because during the combat phase, nothing really happened. I think that's why I forgot to take a photo of it, because my Nurglings were able to hurt any members of the Skaven, and the Skaven were unable to hurt me, because my Cloud of Flies ability, which was kind of nice. Makes them have -1 to hit against me in close combat, which is all kinds of awesome. Which is probably why I forgot to take a photo of it, because nothing really happened. So from there we go directly to the second half of turn number 1. So going third are the Sisters of Sigmar. So this is their photo of their movement phase. As you can see, my friend Sergeant Sigmar decides to take the offense on this one. The Sisters of Sledge, as well as the Liberator, as well as the Prosecutor, all 4 of those fighters charge directly into thing number 2, destroying that guy with 4 fighters. And at the same time, he also moves up the Heraldor right behind them. And the reason why is because the Heraldor is armed with a steel whip. And the reason why that's important is because the Augur doesn't really go into base contact to fight you with the steel whip. She needs to be within 4 inches. So because that all 5 of those fighters will be able to attack thing number 2, which is actually pretty smart. Meanwhile, the Vanguard Hunter, as well as the Retributor and the Lord Relictor, they charge directly into thing number 3, which is located in that top forest there, and engage him in close combat as well. So here's a close-up of the Sisters of the Sledge, as well as the Liberator, as well as the Heraldor and the Prosecutor getting ready to attack thing number 2. And here's a close-up of the Lord Relictor, as well as the Retributor, as well as the Vanguard Hunter engaging close combat with thing number 3. And since these guys charged in, we skip the shooting phase and we go directly to the combat phase. In the combat phase, oh man, they've managed to butcher thing number 2 as well. Pretty much they just kind of stacked the wounds on him for just individual attacks. I believe it was with the Liberator as well as the Prosecutor, I believe, were the ones who finally put 2 wounds on him. But the last killing blow though was the Heraldor, the Augur. She managed to whack him with the steel whip and managed to put that guy out of action, earning herself 2 experience points at exactly the same time. Meanwhile, over here in the combat phase on the top, the Vanguard Hunter as well as the Lord Relictor do manage to put 2 wounds on thing number 3. However, thing number 3 gets attacked next, and the reason why is because the Retributor has a great weapon, so he always strikes last. He decides to put all of his attacks directly into the Lord Relictor, puts a stun result on him, so because of that, the Lord Relictor goes crashing face ground into the ground. He's currently bleeding out. Meanwhile, though, the Retributor does a counterattack with his great weapon, manages to put the last wound directly onto thing number 3 and puts that creature out of action. Also earning himself 2 experience points, one for taking out an enemy out of action, and another bonus experience point for killing one of the things. And that pretty much makes up the turn for the Sisters of Sigmar. And lastly, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Beastman Raiders. This photo is taken after the move phase for Lady Domina. The first thing she does, she declares a charge with Ugla the Maw, her Centaur, who goes charging across the battlefield directly into Sepsimus the Plaguesworn, which is one of my tainted ones located there on the top as well. The rest of the warband just kind of moves up their normal moon allowance for the most part. I take that back, actually. I made a mistake on that one. The Hunters, actually, those 2 Ungors, Kairos, and Shank, they actually move up their normal moon allowance. The rest of the warband ran. There we go. That's what ended up happening. So Varel Heart Eater, as well as Gadun Bloodeye, as well as Thedra Skullsquire, as well as Cleft Jaw move up along the left-hand side, with Thedra Skullsquire up in the front. And as you can see there, Kairos and Shank, they both move up their normal moon allowance, so that way they can shoot during the shooting phase. And you can see Ugla the Maw there engaged in close combat with my tainted one. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, disaster strikes. First thing that Lady Dama does decide to do, she tries to cast Lure of Chaos with Azure Skies, and unfortunately for her though, she failed her power test, so because of that spell doesn't go off. However, K-Roz and Shanked, both those guys open up with their short bows directly into Ebelith Blight, which is one of my strongmen. When they both rolled to hit, they both rolled 6s, so they automatically hit my character. And when they rolled the wound, they both rolled 6s as well, so they managed to put 2 wounds directly onto him. So that part was kind of rough. And it's really rough too because my strongman only has 1 wound on him. So because of that, I do have an armor save of 6 up because I do have light armor, but I couldn't roll any 6s. So because of that, I go crashing face down. And to make things worse, my opponent rolled for her injury dice. She rolled a 6. So because of that, he goes directly out of action as well. And I will need to roll up on the serious injury chart to see exactly what happens to him. So the shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, Sipsimus the Plaguesworn had no problem putting the hurt directly onto Oogla the Maw. Unfortunately for my opponent, she wasn't able to go through his toughness. That guy's got toughness 5 for my Sipsimus the Plaguesworn. He's got toughness 5, and so because of that, she wasn't able to cause any injuries directly towards him, so that part was awesome. However, my character is also strength 4. He's also got a halberd, puts it up to strength 5. Had no problem whatsoever just putting the hurt on him and directly putting him out of action as well. The best part was when I rolled to wound, I rolled a critical strike, which means I did twice as many wounds, and that's the reason why I was able to put that guy out of action so quickly. So chalk a first blood for me against the Untamed Beasts, which is absolutely fantastic. So at the end of all the players' turn, we do go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Things in the Woods. So at every single time the warbands are done moving, then it comes to the Thing in the Woods, and basically what ends up happening is they charge the nearest miniatures that are closest to them, or if they can't charge anybody who's close to them, they roll 2d6 and a scatter die to see where they're going instead. So you can see their Thing number 1 heads over the bottom left-hand corner, heading directly towards Spiteclaw Swarm. Meanwhile, Thing number 4, which is the upper right-hand corner, he's in charge distance of the Lord Relictor, which is really bad because the Lord Relictor is currently stunned, which means if anybody charges him, they basically finish him off with a coup de grace. So that part was super tragic. So there's a close-up with Thing number 1 heading dangerously close directly towards Spiteclaw Swarm. And here's a close-up with Thing number 4, who charged directly into the Lord Relictor, and because the Lord Relictor is currently stunned, he automatically goes out of action. So because of that, he will need to roll up on the serious injury table at the end of the scenario to see exactly what happens to him as well. And with that takes directly to the end of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, so that way you get a good idea what's going on. As you can see, Spiteclaw Swarm as well as my Carnival of Chaos are fighting in the bottom left-hand corner. At the same time, my guys in the upper left-hand corner try to fight against the Untamed Beasts who are coming my way. Meanwhile, the Sisters of Sigmar are pretty much clearing out 2 of the Things of the Woods, which is kind of awesome, but they got to worry about the one at the top now, which just took out their Lord Relictor. Meanwhile, the Thing number 1 is moving directly towards the bottom left-hand corner, which could prove disastrous if that thing manages to get in close combat with our 2 warbands who are fighting it out. So at the end of turn number 1, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Skaven. So we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Skaven. This photo is taken at the recovery phase. As you can see, I believe that's Squee the Lurker. He just kind of rolls over it because he's no longer stunned. He's now just knocked down. So with the recovery phase over with, you go directly to the movement phase. And in the movement phase, as you can see in this photo, my opponent decides to declare a charge. The giant rat from the swarm goes directly into one of my Nurglings, engages that guy in close combat. At the same time, Scratch Spiteclaw, he goes directly into Festering Jawbreaker on the left-hand side, engages him in close combat by charging forward. Meanwhile, Snarl the Rabbit, which is another one of his Night Runners, he goes charging directly into Boiling Ruin on the right-hand side, engaging him in close combat as well. So it's kind of a bold move for my opponent, taking the charge like that. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, Crick the Almost Trusted, as well as the Cat Killer, Squeak the Festering, as well as Raw and Gur. Those guys move up their normal movement allowance, that way they got a good firing position directly into Thing number 1, and they are within range to fire twice with their slings. So I think my opponent started to shoot that guy off the table and managed to finish him off. So here's a close-up of Scritch Spiteclaw as well as Snarl the Rabbit going directly into close combat with my 2 Plague Bearers, so it'll be kind of interesting to see exactly how that goes. You could also see the giant rat there in the bottom right-hand corner charging into one of my Nurglings. And there's a close-up of Crick the Almost Trusted as well as the Cat Killer, Squeak the Festering, Rar, and Gur, who are planning on opening fire with their slings with twice as many shots because of the half distance directly into thing number 1. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, just the number of rocks that are flying his way from the slings was able to finish off thing number 1. In the end, it was the cat killer that was able to put the final wound directly onto him. So because of the cat killer earns 2 experience points, 1 for taking an enemy out of action and a bonus experience point for taking out one of the things in the woods. So that part was kind of cool. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And the combat phase, things did not go according to plan for Dark Lord Max. Spiteclaw, of course, opens up his attacks, but because of the -1 to hit with the Cloud of Flies ability that my Plague Bearer has, he just fails his attacks for the most part, was unable to hit my Plague Bearer, which is absolutely fantastic. My Plague Bearer, however, had no problem putting the hurt directly onto Spiteclaw, managed to put him out of action as well, so that part was all kinds of epic. And the exact same thing happens here on the right hand side for Snarl the Rabbit as well. He tries to open fire with one of his warp lock pistols, managed to hit as well as try to wound my other Plague Bearer as well. But unfortunately for him though, I passed my ward save, so because that, nothing came from it. However, Boiling Ruin though, he put the hurt directly onto Snarl the Rabbit and managed to put that guy directly out of action, which is all kinds of awesome. Meanwhile, close combat here on the bottom of the screen, as you can see, one of my Nurglings gets a knockdown result, so he's perfectly fine. Meanwhile, the fight between the Nurglings was a giant rat, as well as the other member of the Rat in the Walls. Nothing much comes of it. It's just a bunch of flubbing for the most part on both sides. So with that, we go directly to my turn for turn number 2 for the Carnival of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the recovery phase. As you can see, one of my Nurglings, he managed to get back on his feet again, so he is fully recovered now. So with the recovery phase over with, you go directly to the movement phase. And in the movement phase, I decided to take the offense on this one. As you can see, Boiling Ruin and Festering Charlbreaker, they both charge directly into the other 2 members of the Rats of the Wall. Same with my Nurglings, also charge the very last of those guys as well. I move up Papa Malinge within range, so that way he can cast his Demonic Vigor spell. So that's taking place here in the bottom part of my deployment area. Meanwhile, my other half of the warband, they just basically stand their ground for the most part. And the reason why is because they're all armored crossbows, except for my strongmen. They're not armored, my brutes. They're not armored strongbows, but the rest of the guys are. So the crossbows are either move or fire. So because of that, I just stand my ground, so that way I can shoot at them during the shooting phase. So the move phase over with, to go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, once again, Papa Malinge managed to get off Demonic Vigor off, so because of that, now my demons within range have +1 to their ward saves, which make them all ward save 4, which is absolutely fantastic. And during the shooting phase, Boiling Ruin as well as Festering Jawbreaker decided to unleash their Stream of Corruption ability. It's a Strength 3 hit that automatically wounds with no armor saves. As you can see in this photo, I take out one of the members of the Rats of the Wall. I believe that guy's name is Tunneler is his name. At the same time, I also managed to take out Scree the Lurker as well. So put both those guys out of action, which is all kinds of awesome. And unfortunately for Lady Dama, the closest target directly towards my fighters was her leader, Varel Hearteater. So because I have them all concentrate fire with their crossbows, eventually was able to take that character out of action as well. I believe it was one of the Carnies was the one who's actually managed to finish him off in the end. And at the same time, I also put that guy to action as well, so he'll need to roll up on the serious injury table and see exactly what happens to him as well. And that pretty much makes up my shooting phase. So the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And once again, the combat phase was pretty much lackluster. The last member of the Rats of the Wall, that guy's name is Skitterer. He wasn't able to cause any injuries directly towards my Nurglings because of the -1 hit against with my Cloud of Fly abilities. Same thing with the giant rat on the top right hand side. Meanwhile, at the same time, I was unable to cause any injuries back, so not much is happening there. My Nurglings are pretty much failing me on this one, but that's perfectly fine though, because Nurglings are meant to tar pit people, and that's exactly what they've been doing this entire battle report. So from there, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Sisters of Sigmar, and this photo is taken after the move phase. As you can see in this photo, Sergeant Sigmar decides to charge forward, what he decides to do. He sends in both the Retributor as well as one of his members of one of his Vanguard Hunters. They go directly into thing number 4 as well. At the same time, the Augur, the Herald or the Augur, he just basically moves up his normal movement allowance directly to the center, so that way he's in 4-inch range, that way he can attack with his steel whip again. Meanwhile, the Liberator as well as the Sisters of Sledge as well as the Prosecutor, they run as quick as they can up to the top of the table, so that way they can give some support to their friends in close combat. So here's a close-up of the Vanguard Hunter as well as the Retributor engaged in close combat with thing number 4, and you can kind of see the Heraldor. He's right behind the pine tree there on the left-hand side. He's within 4 inches, that way he can strike with his steel whip as well. So since everyone charged or ran, there's no shooting phase. So the shooting phase is over, they go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, it was absolutely fantastic. In the end, they managed to kill thing number 4 as well. Thing number 4 did try to attack back, but unfortunately for him, though, he flubbed his rolls. In the end, though, it was the Retributor that put the final killing blow on him. Both the Heraldor as well as the Vanguard Hunter managed to put 2 wounds directly onto the thing number 4, and it was the Retributor that finished him off with his great weapon, smashing his head in and also putting him out of action and earning himself 2 bonus experience points as well. So with that over with, we go directly to the Untamed Beasts. And this photo is taken during the recovery phase for turn number 2 for the Beastman Raiders. Unfortunately for the Untamed Beasts, because they took so many losses, they do have to route test for a route test, and unfortunately for them, they failed their route test. So because of that, the Untamed Beasts slip off into the darkness and decide to retreat to live and fight another day. And that pretty much ends turn number 2 on this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the table at the end of turn number 2. As you can see, Spiteclaw Swarm is slowly being dealt with in the bottom left-hand corner. My demons are wiping them out bit by bit in close combat. At the same time, in the upper left-hand corner, the Untamed Beasts have fled off the table as well because they've taken so many losses they failed their route tests. And actually, speaking of which, at the beginning of round number 3, the Skaven will have to do exactly the same thing. Meanwhile, on the top right-hand side, as you can see, the Scissors Sigmar have no problem just swarming and killing off the last of the things in the woods. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Skaven. This photo is taken during the recovery phase, and because of the losses they've taken, Dark Lord Mac does have to take a route test for his Skaven. And unfortunately for him, though, he does have Skaven leadership, which is miserable, and they fail their route test. So just like that, the Spiteclaw Swarm decide to flee off the table and live to fight another day because they're just taking way too many losses, which means there's only 2 warbands left, mine as well as Sergeant Sigmarines. So with that, we go to turn number 3 for the Carnival of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the recovery phase. As you can see, my Nurglings are now back on their feet again because they had knockdown results earlier, so that part was kind of epic. So in the movement phase, I decide to run my forces as quick as they can across the battlefield, heading directly towards the Sisters Sigmar, which is the very last warband that's left on the table. And as you can see here, they're just kind of funneling directly towards the center. I plan on getting within range, that way I can open fire with my crossbows and hopefully whittle them down. And then once I've killed off enough Sisters Sigmar with shooting, my plan is then to assault and just overwhelm them with numbers and hopefully kill them that way. So with that, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Sisters Sigmar, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and my buddy Sergeant Sigmar does exactly the same thing. He runs the rest of his sisters directly to the left-hand side, so that way we get within range, that way he can open fire with his slings as well. And because his warband ran, there is no shooting because everybody ran and there's no close combat, and that pretty much ends round number 3. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 3. As you can see, only the Sisters of Sigmar as well as my Carnival of Chaos are the only 2 warbands left on the table. There are no more things in the woods because we killed them all. And as you can see, we're slowly moving towards each other directly to the center of the table near the King in Yellow statue to kind of finish this off and see which of us will be the last warband standing. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4. Alright, so the takes us directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Carnival of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the move phase. And as you can see in this photo, my strongman as well as my 2 tandem ones as well as my 3 carnies, they don't go anywhere. They stand exactly what they need to because they're armed with crossbows. It's either move or shoot for those guys, and I plan on shooting with them. However, for the rest of my warband, though, my 4 Nurglings, Papa Malinge, as well as Festering Jawbreaker and Boiling Ruin, those 7 guys run up as quick as they can up in order to make up join the main line with the rest of my warband. So that way they're all in line now to do some shooting as well as do some close combat, which is absolutely fantastic. And on the shooting phase, I bring the pain. I open with my crossbows directly into the Sisters of Sigmar. As you can see in this photo, I do manage to put a knockdown result on the Liberator. I do a stun result for one of the members of the Sisters of Sledge, and for the second Sister of Sledge, I put her out of action, which is all kinds of awesome as well. And since I shot and no one's engaged in close combat, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Sisters of Sigmar. So that takes directly to turn number 4, for the Sisters of Sigmar, and this photo is taken after the recovery phase, and unfortunately, my friend started assuming he does have to take a route test for his warband, which unfortunately he fails. So because of that, the members of the Sisters of Sigmar decide to slip away and live to fight another day. And that takes us directly in the game with a victory for the Carnival of Chaos. As you can see in this photo, I'm the very last warband standing, which is all kinds of epic, and I managed to clear the board of all my opponents as well. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, first of all, we're going to talk about the Untamed Beasts. For their injuries, they suffered 3 injuries: Varel Heart-Eater, Ugla of the Maw, as well as Cliff Skull. Varel the Heart Eater, he basically ended up with a rod injury, so because of that, he loses all of his weapons, as well as his armor, as well as equipment, but he makes it for recovery, no problem. Ugla the Maw, he suffered a madness injury when we rolled up a d6 to see exactly what happened to him. Lady Domina rolled up the stupidity results, so because of that, now Ugla the Maw is subject to stupidity as well as his drunken rules, which is kind of rough. And Cliff Skull the Gore, he makes it full recovery, no problem. For advancements, no member of this warband advanced at this time, and during the exploration phase, they found 3 pieces of treasure worth 65 gold pieces. With those 65 gold pieces, they purchased a halberd, shield, as well as heavy armor for Varel Heart-Eater as well. Their current record now is at 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses, and their new warband rating now is at 144 points. With that, we go directly to Spiteclaw Swarm of the Skaven. So first, starting with the injuries, they actually had 5 members of the warband get injured. Sketch Spiteclaw got a horrible scars injury, so because of that, he now causes fear. Squeed the Lurker, Snarl the Rabbit, Gnar, as well as Tunneler, all 4 of those guys make full recovery with no problem whatsoever. For advancements, 5 members of this warband did level up. The Cat Killer earned the wall runner ability, so because of that, he automatically passes climbing tests, which is absolutely fantastic for him. At the same time, Squeak the Lurker earned +1 attacks, Snarl the Rabbit earned the tail fighting skill, Squeak the Festering earned +1 initiative, and the Crawling Chaos, which are Gur and Rar, those 2 henchmen earned +1 to the ballistic skill. So now they're armed with flails with ballistic skill 4 with slings. A very deadly henchman group at that. During the exploration phase, we were able to find 2 pieces of treasure worth 45 gold pieces, and my friend decided to take all 45 gold pieces and put them directly into his treasury. His current record now is at 2 wins and 2 losses, and his new warband rating now is at 156 points. So with that, we go directly to the Lords of Azure Skies. They suffer 2 injuries in their warbands. The Lord Relictor, she recovers with a nervous condition, however, so because that, she is now -1 to her initiative, so she's initiative 3. At the same time, one of the members of the Sisters of Sledge that got taken out of action, she makes a full recovery, no problem. For advancements, 4 members of this warband did leveled up. The Retributor earned +1 strength, the Liberator +1 ballistic skill, the Prosecutor +1 initiative, and the Heraldor, she actually leveled up twice. She got Righteous Fury, so now she has hatred towards Skaven, Undead, as well as Cult of the Possessed, and any Chaos elements of that for that matter. And she also earned +1 toughness as well, so she's pretty deadly for a lady who can't see. Now, during the exploration phase, they managed to find 4 pieces of treasure worth 70 gold pieces, as well as a burial site with a medallion inside it worth 5 gold pieces. With those gold pieces, they recruited 2 novices for the Vanguard Hunters. So now there's 3 of those guys now armed with hammer, slings, and bucklers. At the same time, she also recruited another Sigmarite sister armed with hammer, sling, and buckler for the Sisters of Sledge. So now there's 3 of the Sisters of Sledge and 3 Vanguard Hunters. Their current record now is at 0 wins as well as 4 losses, and their new warband rating now is at 131 points. And last, we go to the victors of the scenario, which is Something Wicked. This way comes my Carnival of Chaos warband. In the end, I did suffer 2 injuries. Ibboleth Blight, one of my brutes, he actually makes full recovery, no problem, as well as one of my clowns from one of my nurglings, he makes a full recovery, no problem as well. For advancements, 3 members of my warband did level up. Ibboleth Blight, he actually learned the Mighty Blow ability, so he gets +1 strength bonus in close combat, as well as my 2 tainted ones, Skullgok the Butcher, as well as Sepsimus the Plague Swarm. Both those guys earn skills, and they both earn Strike to Injure, which means they both get +1 to injury rolls. So those guys are really deadly in close combat now. During the exploration phase, I managed to find 2 pieces of treasure with 45 gold pieces, and I took all 45 gold pieces and placed them directly into my treasury. For my record, I have 3 wins as well as 1 loss, and my new warband rating now is at 149 points. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, go directly to the After Action Report for our Empire in Flames Mordheim campaign. This is the part of the battle report where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time. So because of that, the reason why we're doing the After Action Report for our Empire in Flames campaign is because we got to end this campaign prematurely. We were probably making this campaign run a little bit longer, but what ended up happening though is that my friends originally... Okay, here's what the situation is. Of the members of my gaming group who play Empire in Flames or Mordheim campaign, they want to play Necromunda. That's what they want to do. Originally, my Anarchy Road campaign only had 6 players, including myself originally in that campaign. But as we were playing it and my friends were seeing what we were doing, a lot more members of my gaming group wanted to get involved in that campaign instead. And since my friends only have such a limited amount of time, they wanted to do that instead. So because of that, they're doing me a favor by playing with me to make my channel. So because I decided to agree it, we decided to end this campaign early so that way they can play that instead. So here's where the campaign results come in. In 6th place are the Lords Azure Skies, the Sisters of Sigmar with 0 wins as well as 4 losses. In 5th place are Company von Königsmark, our Mordheim Mercenaries warband with 0 wins and 3 losses. In 4th place we have the Untamed Beasts of the Beastman Raiders with 1 win, 2 losses and 1 draw. In 3rd place are the Iron Golems, which is our Pit Fighter warband with 1 win, 1 loss as well as 1 draw. In 2nd place is Spiteclaw Swarm, which is our Skaven warband with 2 wins and 2 losses. And in 1st place is my warband, Something Wicked This Way Comes, my Carnival of Chaos warband with 3 wins as well as 1 loss. And like I said before, we're cutting this campaign short, and the reason why is because my gaming group wants to play Necromunda Anarchy Road campaign instead. And considering they're helping me do this for free, it's not like I'm paying them to play, in my videos. And there's their free time, I'm not going to force them to play something they don't want to play. I'm not going to do that. That's just a really, mean thing to do, alright? It's as simple as that. And they want to play Necromunda instead, I'm more than happy to do that and more than happy to comply, because that Necromunda campaign is going to be out of the sight now. We originally started with 6 players in that campaign and it rocketed up to 12, so that part is even cooler in my opinion. So we'll be doing a much more awesome stuff with that Necromunda goodness instead. As a result though, our Empire in Flames campaign is done, and it is a pretty fun campaign setting. I do like the idea of playing out in the wilderness of the Empire, but if I have to be honest, I actually miss playing inside the City of the Damned. For me, when I was growing up, when I played Mordheim as a kid, I was always enamored with the fact that this fought in this ruined urban environment, ruined buildings, alleyways, slime rivers, bridges and gantries and walkways and ladders and all kinds of stuff. So when I think of Mordheim, I think of a city in decay and warbands fighting in that. I don't really see them playing in the wilderness too much. So because of that, I like to, if we ever do another Mordheim campaign, I would like to do it back in the city limits. It's just more fun that way. Plus, Iron Major made such amazing buildings for our Mordheim campaign, so going back to the city just seems right to me in my opinion as well. And so, yeah, I do like the new warband rules for like the Carnival of Chaos, the Beastmen. I think that's cool, but we'll just take those guys and put them in the city if we can for the next time we do another campaign like that. So that's good news, guys. This could be the very last episode for Empire in Flames, our Mordheim campaign that's set in the wilderness of the Empire. Please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. And also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.